Hi, my name is Sarina Simon. I'm going to moderate this next panel. We have an amazing group of people, and I know I'm very much looking forward to hearing what they have to say about the impact of the digital era on children's television or on television generally. By way of background, I come from the interactive side of children's media. My company, North-South Studios, builds products ranging from distance learning courses to electronic toys to animations to websites for how many? Is that the one that's working? Can I be in stereo? Which one? Yes. This one? Yes. Okay, thank you. For major brands in both education and in consumer products. And as you can imagine, coming from the interactive side of the business, most of what we do is accessed or facilitated by the internet. And although I knew that TV still far outstrips internet usage for kids, I have to say I was really surprised by how much. Overall, according to the latest Nielsen study, and by the way, I think we're going to see a lot of different statistics today, surprise, surprise. I'm using the Nielsen ones, maybe they're a little biased to television, but basically they're telling us that kids 2 to 11 spend an average of 28 hours a week watching television, and that doesn't even count the time they spend watching time-shifted programming. And in contrast, they spend only about 2 3/4 hours a week on the internet. So while the internet may indeed be cannibalizing teenage viewership and adult viewership of television, it really hasn't made a big dent in children's viewership, at least not yet. I think it's reasonable to expect that this is going to change in the near future for a variety of reasons. At present, only 63 to 74%, again, depending on whose statistics you're using, of U.S. households have internet access, but the install base is growing and growing rapidly. Also, many homes have multiple TVs. Someone mentioned that earlier. Multiple computing devices are less common, although that's changing too. New interface devices, like some of the ones you may have seen this morning, are making it easier for younger kids to use the internet and computers in general, and that will undoubtedly enlarge the demographic. Portable devices are becoming more commonplace in the hands of children. For example, by age 10, roughly half of all U.S. children own a mobile phone, and by 12, roughly 3/4 of kids own one. In addition, the growth of internet-connected televisions is going to continue to blur the so-called dividing line between TV and the internet. And like adults, kids are beginning to expect their content anywhere, anytime. So what are TV content providers doing? I'm not one of them, but this is my observation. They're making their content available on as many platforms as possible, and this obviously makes very good sense. We're really talking about content here, not technology. And one of the reasons it makes good sense is that kids are already watching more online video than adults. And for them, this migration to the internet is completely seamless. It doesn't seem unusual to them at all. And though some very successful new brands have been born on the internet, like Webkinz and Club Penguin, younger viewers still tend to prefer sites associated with known programming and toys. So brand sure does still matter. So what does the future hold? If I knew that, I would own that beach house that I've always dreamed of. Instead, I'm here suggesting that the only thing I think we can be certain of is that content providers are going to have multiple distribution channels open to them, and that those channels are going to present both opportunities and challenges. So without further ado, let's find out more about these challenges and opportunities and hear what the real experts have to say. Our first panelist is Terry Fitzpatrick. Terry is the EVP of Distribution. It's a big title, for Sesame Workshop. In this position, he manages distribution strategy and partner relationships to deliver Sesame Workshop content through multiple media platforms. And please hold any questions you may have for Terry or any of the panelists until the end, and then we'll have a Q&A period.
Thanks. Okay, excellent. So Sesame Workshop is a nonprofit organization, and we're an educational organization. And what makes us unique in that space is that we use popular media to distribute our content. I'm going to walk you through a vision of an aligned multimedia Sesame Street educational experience. So a child wakes up and she watches Sesame Street on TV, and she sees the segment Word on the Street, and she learns about the word of the day. Later, she goes to her preschool and has an activity based on the word of the day. She goes on to sesamestreet.org and can play games around the word of the day. She's in the car and she can watch videos around the word of the day. Later that evening, her mom downloads a Word on the Street podcast, and they can watch it together. And her dad reads her a bedtime story and asks her what the word of the day was. Now, the power of this vision is that it provides multiple touch points and exposures for our educational content throughout the day, and it facilitates parental involvement. We found historically that when parents and child work together around our educational content, it dramatically increases the educational efficacy of that content. Now, in order for us to actually implement this vision, there are a multitude of partnerships we have to strike across many different platforms. And when I was considering this, the title of this panel, Reinventing TV, it's really how video content is being delivered. And linear broadcast television was the predominant way to deliver video content historically. And that's been changing dramatically, and by 2040 will change significantly. And video now, TV will always be an essential component for delivering that video content, but there are many other platforms and devices that will also be delivering video content. The one in particular that I want to highlight is mobile. Just to give you some broad stats, television, there are currently 4.5 billion people that watch television on a daily basis in the world. World population is roughly 6.7 billion. So that's about a 67% penetration. Mobile, there are 4 billion people who have mobile phones on the planet. That's about a 60% penetration. In 2002, that number was 1 billion. Huge growth rate. And it's predicted that by 2013, mobile media will exceed television in penetration globally. A key component within mobile is smartphones or 3G technology. And currently, 10% of that 4 billion is smartphone enabled, so it's roughly 400 million people. Within the United States, Forrester just announced yesterday that number is 17%. So 17% of the phones in the US are smartphones. There's been huge growth. 2007, that number was 7%. 2008, it was 11%. Now it's 17%. And as we look to the next generation of parents of preschoolers, it's millennials. Deloitte did a very interesting study on the state of the media democracy survey in 2009, and here's where we may be getting some different data than Nielsen. Millennials watch 1/3 less television. They spend 1/3 less time watching television. 3/4 view their PC as more of an entertainment device than their television. Nearly 60% use their mobile phone as an entertainment device. 73% socialize online, and 80% regularly view and listen to media online. This is the household environment of tomorrow's preschooler. So here at the workshop, we create a large chunk of content, educational content every year. We have a vast content library, and we now have a myriad of distribution partnerships and platforms that we put that content on. So the key is really creating distribution programming to align all of that content into a cohesive whole across each of these platforms, hitting similar curriculum and educational themes on each of these content platforms. It really increases the power of what we're trying to do. Now, Sarina had asked me to talk about digital new business revenue models, and yeah, somebody has to talk about it. Lucky me. And I'll be totally candid and honest. It has been a real struggle, but I don't think the workshop is alone in this, because a lot of media companies have been having a challenge in adapting traditional business models to this new media, the wild, wild west of new media. We break it up into 4 main areas. Payment for content or elements of content, e-commerce, sponsorship and advertising, and as a nonprofit, donations. Now, I don't know how many of you were here earlier, but Mariana from Nokia did a presentation around something we're really excited about, the StoryPlay research project. And to give you a little background, if you weren't here, StoryPlay, it's a prototype of a video conferencing device for children and long-distance family, whether that's grandparents, parents, aunts, and uncles. It's built to promote dialogic reading, and it is a book reader that has a page sensor. So once you turn the page, the device automatically